Well, we went from perhaps the game of the year last Sunday to the worst game of the year this Sunday night football. When I set out this season and said I'm going to do an instant reaction to every single primetime game, I thought primetime game, even if it's teams that are not great, it'll at least be an interesting game. And we have our first stinker of the year. The Atlanta Falcons beat the Minnesota Vikings 22-6 in what was honestly the worst football game in terms of entertainment that I have watched since that Rams Patriots Super Bowl. This was an absolutely disgusting game to watch. JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings couldn't move the ball for anything. The offensive line was pretty dreadful tonight. And when it comes to battle line play mixed with a de facto rookie quarterback in his second start, learning the offense, missing one of his weapons in Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones leaves with a hamstring injury. It went about as bad as you would think that it would go for the Minnesota Vikings. And then for the Atlanta Falcons, I guess they were efficient, but they ran the same play every single play. It felt like they came out in pistol and ran a halfback stretch, either to the left with Bijan, to the right with Bijan, to the left with Algier, to the right with Algier, mixing a couple halfback dives, a couple out routes, and they said, see you later, pack them up, Minnesota Vikings. And listen, you won by double digits. So if you're a Falcons fan or the Falcons play caller, I get it. But man, from an entertainment value, this game really sucked. But we love the NFL. We're here to talk about it anyways. Let's talk about it from a Falcons perspective. They lose a heartbreaking game to Tampa Bay last week on an Igbuka touchdown towards the end there. They missed the field goal from Younghoe Koo to force overtime. Bench him for Parker Romo. Romo looked pretty solid tonight. So if you're Atlanta, at least you're like, hey, we got a kicker at this point in time. And even though Atlanta's offense tonight was pretty bad, pretty predictable from an entertainment standpoint, there are certainly some things that, if I'm a Falcons fan, I take away feeling excited about. The team had 219 rushing yards in this game. Bijan Robinson, 22 carries for 143 yards, averaging 6.5 a carry. Tyler Algier, 16 carries for 76 yards, averaging 4.8 a carry with a touchdown. You were able to just absolutely mow up and down the field against a Minnesota Vikings defense that's actually pretty solid. Andrew Van Ginkel's not out there, but this was still recognized as one of the better defenses in football with Brian Flores, and your offensive line and your run game was able to go out there and manhandle. And that's going to be the Falcons' path to success this year. Get downhill running with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, control the clock, control the game, force your will, and really beat down the opposing defensive line to the point where you could have breakaway runs at the end of the game. That last drive with Algier, where he ended up scoring the touchdown, I know the Vikings let him in the end zone at the end, trying to get the ball back and then get the 2-point conversion. But, ultimately, Atlanta's real lean on you running attack worked. I feel like Atlanta has a real pass rush. Leaving the NFL draft, there was a lot of chatter about the Falcons trading away their first round pick for this upcoming year to the Rams to get another edge rusher. They had Jalen Walker. They wanted James Pierce Jr. And tonight, man, 6 sacks for them. It's pretty good if you're them. And their pass rush looked absolutely legit tonight. Don't get me wrong, Minnesota's offensive line was banged up and hurt. But if you are Atlanta, you haven't had a pass rush this good in years. I believe Mina Kimes tweeted out during the game that the Falcons had a pass rush win rate of like 60%. They were getting a 60% pressure rate, which would have been the highest in the last decade for Atlanta. So again, even though Minnesota's line was banged up in this game, Atlanta does finally have a real pass rush, it feels like. And this is something that fans of the Falcons, fans of the NFL, just analysts have been clamoring for Atlanta for a very long time now, something they've desperately needed, and it feels like they have it. To be able to go win a game on the road in which Michael Penix only throws for 135 yards, you feel pretty good if you're a Falcons fan. Was it entertaining? Nope. But did you leave Minnesota with a W? Absolutely. That is the point of the game, to go out there and get a win, and you left feeling like the kicker issue from last week that cost us potentially the game, the defensive line looks excellent, and Bijan Robinson is quickly becoming one of the best running backs in football. And Dude, if I was a Falcons fan, I'd probably be telling myself, like, he's going to take over this year, and it's very possible that he will. For the Minnesota Vikings side, you guys know that the Vikings were a team that I was pretty high on going into the season because of their overall roster talent. And I still feel like healthy, the Minnesota Vikings could certainly be a playoff team, but I have certainly pumped the brakes a little bit on my opinion of this team being able to compete for this division. JJ McCarthy is just super, super green, man. And you draft a guy at 21 years old and you get an opportunity to develop him. The development process is underway. And this team was always inevitably going to take a step back from where they were last year at 14 wins with Sam Darnold. But games like this just didn't happen last year. And I get it. Again, the offensive line is uber banged up. Jordan Addison is suspended. I'm not trying to throw all of this at the feet of JJ McCarthy, but you could tell that the floor with McCarthy compared to Sam Darnold is clearly a lot lower. He had 3 turnovers in this game. Could have easily been 4. Could have had 3 interceptions, had 2. That one at the end there. Obviously, how much does it really matter? But he didn't recognize that he didn't have a free play. It was a penalty on the offense. This was just really, really bad quarterbacking from JJ McCarthy tonight. And again, I have some sympathy for the guy. Just had a kid this week. His offensive line, Christian Darrisaw out. His left tackle just getting absolutely brutalized all night. Then his center, Ryan Kelly, goes out, dealing with backups at probably the 2 most important positions on the offensive line for a young quarterback. Aaron Jones, one of his main weapons, gets injured in the game. Jordan Addison, a guy who he'd been working with all training camp, was suspended the first 3 games. And then ultimately Atlanta's just like double team or bracket Justin Jefferson and see what happens. And ultimately the Minnesota Vikings got ran off the field in this game, but you can't feel good if you were a believer in the Vikings like myself. Like, this isn't a game that makes me think that, I mean, they for sure can't compete with Green Bay, but let alone Detroit. And hell, are they lucky to have gotten that win over Chicago? Over the course of this season, 8 quarters of football, Minnesota's only been good for 1 of them. And you thought maybe the momentum of that 4th quarter versus Chicago would carry over into this game, but that loss in week 1 for Chicago looks way worse now. Way worse now. And you look at this NFC North and you're like, yeah, Green Bay's the top, but Detroit's going to push for them. And maybe Minnesota or Chicago gets in, but the way Minnesota looked tonight, like, that roster has to get healthy and has to be back out there soon. You don't want to overreact to week 2. JJ's got a lot of season to learn and develop, and he does have the pieces, and Kevin O'Connell and Jordan Addison will be back, and Darrisaw will be back, Ryan Kelly will be back, and I think there's certainly brighter days ahead for Minnesota, but this was a really, really bad look for JJ McCarthy and this Vikings team. Atlanta walks into their house and walks out with a win. Both of these teams 1-1. Both of these teams, probably, if I had to reassess predictions after week 2 of the NFL season, will be outside of the playoffs looking in the NFC, but they're both fringe playoff teams. Absolutely. We'll see where things go from here. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on this game. It was a tough watch. I'm going to get some sleep. I got work in the morning. Make sure, if you love the NFL, you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit the like button on this video. That way I know you guys like these instant reaction content. For more reactions like this, tier list, winners and losers, that'll be out tomorrow. Week 2 winners and losers. We got a ton to talk about there. A lot more exciting games. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. I'll catch you guys then. Peace.